New Zealand photographer Tom Hutchins spent 4 months in 1956 travelling through China on an exclusive assignment for Life magazine. Few foreign journalists at the time were permitted visas to enter the country, and his photographs form a unique insight into China very much in transition. Returning to New Zealand, he sent a handful of prints off to be published, then packaged the negatives and stored them under his house. 50 years later, photographic historian John Turner discovered this rare archive and set about piecing together the collection.
Marla, my wife, and I went to Tom's house because we'd found out that his photographs were stored under his house, the stuff from China. And we dragged out these boxes and suitcases and found to our horror that 90%, 91, 93% of all the material, which included photographs, some slides, magazine and newspaper clippings from China, and his own manuscript on writing about his experience and descriptions of the place, and his caption lists, most of those were rotted beyond repair.
A socialist, Hutchins had followed the early years of New China with great interest. On being granted a visa, he gave up his job at the Auckland Star and set off to Hong Kong, from where he entered the mainland by train. Over the next 4 months, he photographed most of the major cities. Jia Amy, a recent graduate from Fudan University, was hired to guide Hutchins around Beijing.
I met Tom in 1956, June. Actually, I was a beginner because I came to work in October of 1955. So I was a beginner, and John was the first foreign photographer I worked with.
He did manage to go from what's now Guangzhou. He went up to Beijing. He got to Xi'an. And he got up to Anshan and the big steel work areas and the coal mines up in north east of China, and he also got as far west as Urumqi.
We had this mind in that most Westerners may look down upon us, thinking we are backward, and so when we work with foreigners and photographers, we are very concerned that they don't take pictures of what we think that's the backward part of China.
He pushed the limits. He was gregarious. He was curious. He really liked people. So he would be out there all the time photographing people.
If they took picture of bound feet, we still had, not today, but in the 50s we still had bound feet women. So now if I call back, I would think it's just very unusual for them, so they want to take pictures of something different that you don't see in the Western world. But at that time, at least I feel very unhappy if I saw some foreigner took pictures of bound feet. I think they would show this is China and the negative part of China. But I didn't have this problem with Tom. He didn't take pictures of what I would think it's the backward.
Most of the people who are looking at his work who really appreciate it, and I've had numerous offers of shows and potential publications here, is that how they see it, how they have phrased it, is that they see Tom's work as unbiased. And I take that to mean that compared, for instance, to, say, photographers from the United States, who come here with a mindset about the nature of communist society, etc., versus their own capitalist country, that his work was relatively open and relatively neutral and certainly empathetic and sympathetic.
Without being given a reason, Hutchins was asked to leave China 2 months before his visa expired, and he returned to New Zealand. The work was published as an 8-page spread titled Red China on the March in the January 1957 issue of Life magazine. Hutchins' China work is significant not only for its quality and scope, but also because his fly-on-the-wall style provides a very different visual history to the Chinese photographers of the time.
Well, I think it's extremely important because mainly he shows the ordinary people. He shows people in the street, doctors, teachers, schools, all the things that the Chinese government allowed, but he also broke with that and he got into the oil fields, he got into photographing ethnic minorities and so on, or minorities which are huge numbers of people, more than in New Zealand. So I think all that's significant, and what's significant is he got to places that Henri Cartier-Bresson did not get to. He got to places that Marc Ribot did not get to. So if you look at as a jigsaw of European photographers photographing in China during the 50s and the 60s, you can see his work actually fits in there very well, and it covers places and gaps that exist because the other photographers didn't get there.